Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of The Strategic Thinker. I'm Dr. John Meis, and I'm here with Melissa Thomas. How you doing, Melissa?
I'm good. Hi, Dr. John.
Well, we picked a really good topic today. I think this is going to be a fun conversation. So Melissa and I decided to talk about the lessons that we learned from our favorite leader. And both of us have had the pleasure of having many great leaders and mentors. And so it's kind of a tough one to boil down those lessons. But that's what we're going to do. And when we talk about the people that were in our lives that were great leaders and mentors to us, that helps us figure out some of the pieces that we have that we got from them, but it also can help us figure out some of the pieces of our leadership game plan that we don't have that we need to spend a little time strengthening. All right. So with that, Melissa, tell us a little bit about the main things that you learned from the greatest leader that you worked with.
Awesome. So I love this topic because it really tries to make me boil it down into one thing, but I think it's still an overarching theme of several things. And the biggest thing I think I learned from really my most influential leader was that I didn't really know how to be a good leader until I was led by a good leader. And so really breaking down the pieces of why did I feel like she was such a fantastic leader? Well, because she made me feel supported. How did she do that? You know, she made sure that I always knew she had my back, or that, you know, she was a good listener. How did she make me feel like my opinion mattered? She asked for my opinion, right? So it was really thinking through all those pieces on what did I feel, you know, what did I learn from that leader, and how did she make me feel like that, to really kind of take those actionable nuggets and say, that's what I need to do to those people I'm leading.
Yeah, awesome. That is such a great point. Creating that safe environment so that you can, you know, kind of get outside of your comfort zone and do more maybe than you thought you had.
So you're not afraid to fail, right?
Right, exactly.
You're going to make mistakes, but you'll be supported.
Yep.
And knowing that you have a safe place to make those mistakes, I think was really, really powerful too.
Yeah, I remember reading somewhere that one of the mantras in Silicon Valley is to fail big and fail fast. I'm not sure I entirely believe that, but the point is, don't be afraid to take risks. And when you take risks, there's going to be failures. That's just part of the deal. That's part of the deal in growth. Part of the deal with innovation is not everything's going to work out exactly like you planned it. And from my point of view, as long as you learn from that and we don't make the same error twice, then it's been a good experience. All right, I'll throw out. Go ahead, Melissa. Sorry.
To your point of making mistakes, I had a leader once tell me that, you know, it's not about the mistake that you made, it's how you cleaned it up too, right? That the biggest lesson is, how'd you clean it up? Did you apologize? Did you make it right? Did you not do it again? So it's everything that happens after the mistake that makes it impactful.
Yeah, you know, in relationships, whether they be with patients, coworkers, family members, sometimes the relationship is really deepened by having an experience where there was something that didn't go well, but you recovered from it well. You know, you had that conversation, that you talked about it. You talked about what went right, and what didn't go right. If there's an apology needed, you're happy to do that. And you said the most important thing is I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to show my learning, my development by consistently avoiding whatever it was that happened.
Right, by learning from that mistake.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I'll throw one out here. Maybe we'll go back and forth for a few minutes. One that I learned was kind of related to one that you just said, but it's finding the balance with your teams between challenge and support, right? So if we give all support with no challenge, then people don't feel very fulfilled. They don't grow as rapidly. They don't necessarily take risks. They don't take on things that they don't think that they're ready. So if they're always just supported without being challenged, that can create a problem. So the other side of that is, if there's always challenged, if everything that you give people is above their capabilities, And if you aren't coming up with support when there's failures, if you're just challenging them, and challenging, so a situation where we have high challenge and low support, that doesn't work very well, right? Because what we build into our systems is turnover, because that's a stressful situation where people just feel like they can't get ahead and they move on. So balancing out that challenge and support, not too much challenge, not too much support with no challenge, right, which creates often prima donnas. The other side having too much challenge with no support, you burn people out and you have lots of turnover, and you never develop that core team that is really what makes businesses grow. That same core team working together, learning together, getting better together, supporting each other, trusting each other. That's what makes companies fantastic.
And it's interesting because I think that at a new team member, right, you might be high on the support, lower on the challenge, exactly, and then you're slowly shifting. So it's not your leadership style is here, challenge, support. It's shifting it to meet the individual where they are too, and making sure, you're always balancing that. I like that.
It's exactly right. And it's the same in group practices when we're looking at individual locations, right? Some of them need more support than challenge. Some of them need more challenge than support. And trying to get that balance right with each one, the last thing you want is your high performing practices to not feel challenged, because no matter how high performing they are, they can do better. And if they get support with no challenge, all of a sudden they think they're special. They start to think the rules don't apply to them. They start misbehaving. They start taking time off. They start finishing their day early, and they end up in some behaviors that can be destructive to the service that we're providing to patients. So that's exactly right, is being thoughtful about how you balance those two things.
Sure. I also think, one of the big things that comes to mind is I understood the true value of communication, and whether it be, just little snippets here and there, right? I had a leader who, after every big executive meeting, she would debrief the entire team. This is what happened. And sometimes it felt like, okay, we don't need to hear everything that happened, but then when that goes away, you realize how valuable that communication was. And so it was just helpful to understand, we talked about this might be coming up. I'll let you know when you need to be brought into this. This could be happening. And you just felt safe, like you knew what was going on, and that you were valued in the communication loop.
It also helped you make the little decisions that you're making. If you know what the big decisions are and what the direction things are going, when you know where you're going, the little decisions are so much easier, aren't they?
That's how you trickle down your vision, right? You can't assume that every layer of your organization, each practice, outside of your main practice or outside of your support center, if you will, really understands what you want if they're not being communicated to.
And I was that was going to be my next one that I was going to throw out, is that you can't over communicate the fundamentals. So when I think about group practices and the fundamentals, the things that have to be communicated over and over and over again, and it seems repetitive to the executive team, but they have to be repeated over and over again. And that is mission, vision, values. You cannot talk about those things too much. And, you think about them, you live them, it's part of your day-to-day duties. But other people can get distracted by what they're working on because they have their everyday duties, which are different. And so just refreshing those as every time you have a conversation, being able to over communicate the fundamentals, I think is a critical leadership skill.
They say that you haven't done your job in communicating it if your team isn't tired of hearing about it, right? If you don't get the I know, then they don't really know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they'll let you know if they have too much, but that's assuming you have a static team. And look what's happening in the dental employment right now, right? We're short-staffed. We've got new team members. We don't necessarily have the same, because we're trying to fill seats with a market with a dental workforce that's 17% lower than it was before COVID. Right? We are trying to do more with people that maybe aren't as capable or as experienced as before. So it's even more important now that you're communicating those things over and over again so that people understand.
I always think the same is true when I think about clinicians. I think we used to talk to really our providers about this too, is that it's the same thing for a patient. It may be your 5,000th time you're discussing a crown and what it means to the patient and their teeth, but it may be their first ever crown. And so just remembering that just because it's so ingrained in your mind doesn't mean that someone else knows what you're thinking, understands the procedure, the list goes on.
Are you drive lessons? Have we exhausted what you had thought about ahead of our conversation?
I think so. Those are the big ones. Now I could go on and on and on because like we said, stories get close to your heart, right? I was trying to think.
So I think that's a good one though, is using stories to get your point across. Because people, as stories engage people, it opens their creativity. They want to list, they want to be drawn into something that's outside of themselves. And by using stories to make points, it's a great communication tool.
There's a natural passion in explaining it too, right? It's easier for others to communicate an experience that has happened to them than to just explain something, out of a textbook. So
yeah,
good stories.
And I just have one last one that I think is really important, and that is we all perform better when our confidence level is high. Right. So as leaders, we have to think about how do we make corrections in our team without destroying or lowering their confidence. Right. So making sure that with every experience that people leave that experience with their confidence intact. Now, sometimes people get overconfident and there needs to be a little bit of a correction there, but not knocking them up. I just see so many leaders that come in, they bark orders, they tell people they're stupid. They just rip everybody up. Everybody's confidence level is lower. And then they expect the team to perform better. Yeah. Well, that's not really how humans work. They perform.
It's tough love, right? No.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's exactly right. So when we're giving those challenges, we have to make sure that we do it in a way that maintains or grows our team's confidence. Otherwise, their performance is going to go down.
Absolutely.
All right, Melissa. Well, thanks for hopping on this episode of The Strategic Thinker. We're glad you all were on with us, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks so much.